All right, what we're going to do right now, um, I have not graded the tests. I didn't look at them, but I did get emails from a couple people saying that they were kind of confused over what we were supposed to do, or they had problems or whatever. So we're going to go basically do the test right now as a class. So you should have some kind of an idea over how well you did or did not do based on this, okay? I just emailed all of you a folder right now with this file in it. And the folder's name, I think it's, I don't know what the hell it is. It's just js.zip. And literally, I'd like you to go and grab that folder, unzip it, and open up whatever editor you use, open up the file that's inside of there, please. And that file is named inclassbmi.js. Everybody been able to do that? All right. So this is what I did, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm a student in this class, all right, and looking at the requirements for the test, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things that we're supposed to be doing, all right? And so what I did was I took those 9 things, and coming in here, first thing I did was I grabbed the prologue, which was basically this. I don't think anybody's got any questions about that, but I threw it in there as a comment. Then I broke it up and I said, okay, I want to do each one of those things. So here's where I'll put in requirement 1. Here's where I'll put in part of requirement 7. Here's where I'll put in requirement 2, etc. Does that make sense? In other words, I'm just, for I don't know what you'd call it, I'm apportioning it out, whatever you want to say. All right? I did have a nice little cheat sheet for me here, which of course I can't find. I guess that's life. All right. So the first thing that we were told to do in here was to set up our global constants, correct? So I'm going to set those up. You want to follow along? You want to do this any way you want to do it is fine. If it's easier for you to just watch, then watch. If you're thinking, I did fine on this test, then let your mind go someplace else. All right, that's fine. So I'm going to create 4 global constants here, const, and I'm going to call it min height, which I'm going to set equal to, I think we said 12. And that's a minimum height allowed. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here. Just going to put that in 4 times. All right, so my minimum height was 12. My maximum height, I think we said, was 96. The minimum weight was 1. And the maximum weight was 777, I believe. All right. Now, I'm just going to keep going through unless, and I don't mean right here necessarily, but unless you have questions, I'm just going to keep going. All right? So stop me, yell if I don't see your hand up, or say, hey, wait a minute. I'll be more than happy to stop. But to me, it's of very much importance that you understand what we're doing here. All right? Now, I'm going to do the next thing a little bit out of order because we had those global accumulators. So I'm going to put those next. Any questions on these? Those are constants. Those values are not changing throughout the life of the program. All right, and I put a little comment there for each: minimum height, minimum weight, maximum weight. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to put in my 4 accumulators. Those are not constants, so those are going to be variables. So I'm going to have var, and I just called it total underweight. We'll set that equal to 0, and we'll say total, total number underweight people. And again, because I'd like to get this done, so I've got my total number of underweight, my total number number of overweight. In fact, I suppose I should do it kind of in order, but it really truly doesn't matter. All right. So I've got total underweight, total optimal weight, total overweight, and total obese. I could call it total obese weight. It really doesn't matter. But again, one of the things I was looking for with both your constants, all right, so with both your constants and with your variables here, was to come up with names that were reflective of what it was you were trying to do. Does that make sense? All right, and that technically is part of your grade. All right. Give this one quick more look in here and make sure I don't have my cheat sheet. There it is. All right. So far I've come through here and I've done number 1. I've done part of number 7. All right. So the next thing, requirement number 2. Put main in a while loop. Have no global variables except the accumulators shown at the end of these requirements. Well, those are these. So we've already got those accounted for. In main, at the end of each loop iteration, ask the user if she or he wants to do the program again and let them do so as desired. All right? So, in other words, this is going to be what? Function main. I'm going to go a little nuts here probably with my documentation, but as mentioned, I'd rather do that and give you too much than not put enough in here. All right, so again, this is where main's going to be. Inside of main, I created 4 variables. Does all that make sense? Any questions on that? All right. Those are the variables that either I'm inputting or I'm calculating. All right. I don't know if you'd say that the BMI status I'm exactly calculating, but I think at least you get the idea. All right. I'm going to have another variable in here that's going to be called again. Do it very similar to the way we did it in class for the payroll one. I call that program continue variable. In fact, I think we called it keep going. We'll do that. All right. Something might have, I don't know. All right. Any question on any of those 7 variables, what they are, what they're being used for, etc.
Can you elaborate on the last third one?
Yes. That keep going, I want to be able to have the program continue. So in other words, what I'm going to put in here right now is while, and I'm sorry, that's not false, that's true. That's my error. All right, so I want to say here while keep going, which again is the equivalent of saying while keep going equal true. So you can say either one. So in other words, this is going to allow me to run the program continuously. That's what that variable is. All right. This, I'm going to say, do you want to run the program again? And they're going to answer ideally Y if they want the program to run again, or N if they don't want the program to run again. In an ideal world, that's what they're going to do. All right. Problem is they might type in yes or whatever. So this is going to be the first character of this. All right. So it's like, you know, I ask you a question, and whatever it is, and and you answer it, and then I say, well, do you want me to ask you again? Type of an idea. Does that make sense? All right. So while we keep going, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in all the calls to my different routines. Did you hear what I said? I'm going to put in all the calls to my different routines, but I'm going to take 3 of those, and as soon as I put them in, I'm going to comment them out because I want to do these one at a time. But I want to show you everything that we're going to do here. So I'm going to say here, height equal input height, weight equal input weight, weight, BMI equal calculate BMI, BMI status equal, I don't know if it's really a calculate, but I'll call it that anyway. Calculate BMI status. All right. Now I'm going to immediately take these 3 lines here and I'm going to comment them out. All right. Also, once I want to calculate the BMI, I need the height and the weight. Would you agree with that? We need that because that's part of the formula. So I'm going to have to pass to there both the height and the weight. All right. And when I calculate the status, that's going to need the BMI. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to also want to call output all info. And I'm going to want to output the height, the weight, the BMI, and the BMI status. Take a look at that and tell me. Don't worry about it being commented out right now. Is there anything in those? Those are 5 different function calls or function invocations. Does each one of those make sense? Because if it doesn't, ask. This is going to return the person's height, and it'll have to be a number between 12 and 96, because if it's not, we won't allow it. This will return the person's weight, and it has to be a number between 1 and 777, because if it's not, we won't allow it. I'll take your question in a second. This will be the BMI that we've calculated. This will be underweight, optimal weight, overweight, or obese, and this will just print everything out. Yes?
Can you explain the while part again?
This basically says, notice up here we said keep going equal true. So this says as long as that variable that's called keep going is true, I'm going to keep doing this. So if you imagine, this will handle me reading in 1 height, weight, and figuring out the BMI, or 1,000,000 height, weights, and BMIs.
So instead of while, could you say a different word if you had to?
Well, the only other words that you can say in most programming languages including this one. If you didn't use while, you'd have to use what's called for, which allows you, but with a for loop, you need to know exactly how many times you're going to do it. We don't know, so that wouldn't work. What we could do is instead of while, we could put the word do there, and we could put the while down here. We're going to talk about that when we go over chapter 3, but this isn't a good program for doing that. You could, but that's probably not what you'd want to do. All right? Good questions. Any other questions on here? Now, hopefully you agree with this, that once I write the input height, the input weight is virtually identical, except I have to change the h's and height to w's and weight. But other than that, it's going to be the same function. Does that make sense? All right, so let's write that. So this is called input height. So there it is right there, requirement 3. Input height, not allowing for blank, out of range, etc. So this is going to be function input height. Now, hopefully you all, what I'm about to say, hopefully you all understand this. And if you don't, please ask. All right. I am not passing any parameters into that. Would you agree? There's nothing in the parentheses. I do want to pass a value back. So I have to create that value so that I'm able to pass it back. Now I could call it height, but just to make, because I can change it and make it different, I'm going to say var h. All right, instead of height. Just going to say h. All right, and I'm going to say equal parse int prompt please enter a height between, and if you don't get what this is all doing, just give me a second here and we'll go over it. Min height and I'm just going to put a number here. It doesn't matter. I'm going to put in 175. All right, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. So if this confuses you, for lack of better words, play computer. When you are playing computer, you do what's in the inside set of parentheses first. That's this. Does that make sense to everyone? So this should print up on the screen. Please enter a height between 1 space and space 96. Does that make sense? That's what it should say. And 175, I did the weight first, which was stupid. So let's make it 72. We'll just, Colin asked me before we took the test, can I make another 2 constants, one for a default height and one for a default weight? Of course you could. So if I could have made something and called it def height for default height and set it equal to 72. Then I would have put def height there. You don't have to even put anything there. You could have even put their input height. It doesn't matter. All right. This right here, I'm going to put a comment here. This, I'm doing my first read. This is called a priming read. All right. Now, why am I telling you that? I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but the idea, you ever either been at a farm or someplace where they've got one of those old-fashioned pumps from where you get water and you got to sit there and you basically got to prime the pump? That's what this is doing. That's why it's called a priming read. That's what it's based after. This is reading the first record. Now, if I come in here for a height and I put in 60, everything's cool, correct? Everything's cool. Boom, it's going to meet it. But if I don't put in, what if I fat finger And instead of putting in 60, I put in 600. Well, that's out of range. All right? So it's not going to like that. So I have to come in here and put in another while and say while either is NaN H. So that will handle if I put in a non-numeric value for the height. Right there. That's what that's going to handle. All right? So if I put in a non-numeric value for the height, or I put in a height that's less than my minimum height, or I put in a height that's greater than my maximum height. So if I've done any of those, the program right now then is wrong. So I'll even put a comment over here, and this will say check for non-numeric, and I can do that. Check for out of range low. Check for out of range high. Yes. Yeah. Does all this make sense? This is saying, so in other words, if I wanted to put a comment up here, I could say validate value read in for height. Isn't that what we're doing? We're validating it. We're asking the system to prove that the value is numeric, that it's not less than 1, and that it's not greater than 96. So if one of those things happen, what do I want to do? Well, I just want to ask them to read it back in again. But first, what I'll do is I'll tell you what, I'll come in here and I'll say, hey, invalid height inputted \n plus. So if it's out of range, I'm going to say invalid height inputted, and I'm going to ask them to do it again. So I'm going to keep them stuck in a loop. I'm going to keep them stuck in that loop until they put in a valid value. And once they fall out, there's only one more line to add. Return H. That is the whole function. And the really good news is the wait function is identical, except I'm going to change W, 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 etc. Does that make sense? It's the exact same function. So I'll leave that up there, but just let me highlight all of it. Now, it is missing the bottom curly brace there just because there's not enough room to show it all on here. Does anyone have any questions over what is going on right here? Again, this is the time to ask if something doesn't make sense. Yes? What it does is, when it gets down to here, I'm 100% guaranteed I have a value between 1 and 96. I have to, because otherwise I'm stuck in here. It's going to grab that H, and it's going to stuff it right into there. And in just a minute, when we put this back, all right, it's going to do the same exact thing. with weight. But again, except that's now a W, that's a W, 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 W. Now I can say, let's just keep it 172, that's fine. W, W, W. Be real careful if you're going to do a lot of copying and pasting like I'm doing right here. If you forget to change one of these, the whole thing is going to be screwed up. All right, because instead of checking height, it's going to be checking, or weight rather, it's going to be checking height. Is there a weight? And I'll have to return W. Now, what I'm going to do, if you just stop for just a second, that should be 172, not 712. All right. If you look up on the screen, I'm going to go back where I put this one. I'm going to comment this out again. All right, I'm commenting that out. I want to just see if this input height thing works. I want to see if it works, period. All right, so I'm going to go over to my HTML file and I'm going to run the program. Okay, well that's a good start, right? Let's put nothing in there. Illegal value inputted. That's good. Notice it's asking for a value between 12 and 96. Let's try 11. Again, illegal value inputted. Let's try 97. Again, illegal value inputted. That's all good, right? So let's put in 75 and hit enter. Now it's asking for a weight. I thought that I must not have saved, but that's fine. All right. Why it's running the whole thing, I'm not sure, but it is. Oh, I know why. Because I'm not running the right program. This is in-class BMI. There we go. All right. So, nothing in there. Boom. Illegal height inputted. Out of range, meaning it's less than 12. Doesn't take it. More than 96. Doesn't take it. All right. 72. Whoops. 72. Notice all it's doing, because it's in a loop, right? All right. Well, I don't want it to run anymore, so I'm just going to try click and cancel. Let's see if I can get. If this happens and you get into a loop like this, all right, usually if you just close that, it'll go away. All right. Now, one more thing. This is not part of your program, but while I'm testing this, I'm going to put an alert here. I'm going to get rid of it later, but I'm going to put an alert here that says height equals plus height. You don't have to do that. Did you hear me? You don't have to do this. But I'm doing it so that when I read in a height, I want to make sure that that's exactly what was read in. So I'll leave it at 72. Height equals 72. Well, that's good. All right. So that appears to be working. I'm asking again, are there any questions over what we're doing here or anything at all that is in here? Any questions? Because now we're doing the same exact thing here, except instead of inputting the height, we're inputting the weight. That's the only difference. So make sure you change all those H's to W's. So that's a W. Notice that's good. I can highlight it and it'll show me. Yeah. It looks like I hit all. No, look at this. Max W height. Well, that's screwed up. So I'm going to have to change that one to that. That's the problem that you can run into when you do too much copy and paste. All right? And when I get done with this, what I want to do is I want to come back up here and I want to take that line and uncomment it. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab that alert, and I've got height equals wrong. All right, height equal, weight equal. Let's hopefully I didn't screw it up, but we'll find out. All right, so height was 72. Well, doesn't like something. Height equals plus height. Weight equals plus, I don't see anything there that looks wrong, but there could be. Let's comment it out. Try to run the program again. All right. It's not asking me for my weight, so there's something screwed up. So I've got input weight there. There's input weight, but it's saying there's something in here that it doesn't like. So I'm going to look at it. Weight, weight. Weight. So there's nothing wrong with the input height, but there is something goofed up with the input weight. And please take a look. If you see anything that looks wrong, let me know. Input weight, weight. There's input height. There's input weight. These are just comments, so that wouldn't screw anything up. Input weight. Max weight, min weight, and max weight, 172. Okay. Number W. See that? Look. I think that's what's breaking it. I could be wrong, but I'm going to check now. Looks like that's what the problem was. It was on me. All right. So, my question is there anything in here, or here, or here, or here, or what we've done so far in here, or the input height or the input weight that anyone has any questions? Something that doesn't make sense. What this is saying is, so this is going to come up, look at the line above it, all right? Lines 119, 120, and 121. That's going to bring up a box right here. And that box is going to say, please enter a weight between 1 and 777. Does that make sense? And then it's going to have in here where you can input, and by default, it's going to say 172. And it'll have a button here, I think, that says OK, but I don't remember what it is. All right. So you just click OK, everything's fine. So now it's got to come in here. Let's say you took this out and you put nothing in there. Well, that's what that first part of the while is going to do. Because if there's nothing in there, then what's really in there is NaN, not a number. So this says while your input for that was not numeric. All right? Well, if it's not numeric, you also have to check and say, or if the number you input is less than 1, or if the number you input is greater than 777. So what you're doing is what's called input validation. That's exactly what you're doing right there. All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and then the part int is out of the two decimal places.
What the parse int is doing, it has nothing to do with decimal places. In fact, this supposes you're putting in a whole number. You're going to put in a whole number for the height and a whole number for the weight. All right? I don't think that anybody is that vain. Do you weigh 150 pounds? No, I'm 149.8. I mean, you could do that if you really wanted to, and then use a parse float, but I figured that using a parse int would be just fine. So this is the prompt. This is taking it and converting it into a number. All right? Or attempting to convert it into a number. All right. Then the next line that's in here is the BMI. And it's going to call calculate BMI, and it's going to need to use that formula. All right, right there. So what we want to call here is calculate BMI, and we want to pass in the height and the weight. So function calculate BMI. Again, we could give it the same name. For height and weight, we could give it different names. Let's keep the same name in there. That's fine, because I've already got it copied. All right. Now, what's nice is all I have to do is grab that formula. I gave you the formula. And it's actually even easier than that. All right. There's the formula. And I don't even need to say BMI equals. All I need to do is say return. If I want to, I can put parens around the whole 9 yards. That's it. Oh, and this goes back to what I think you'd asked, Andrew. So when I return this, dot to fixed 2. Now it's going to return that in 2 decimal places. All right. Well, what you want to make sure, you need this set. And now this is wrong. I don't want weight in pounds. I just want weight. And I don't want height in inches. I just want height. All right. The reason that you put the parens around is this is part of the formula right there. Okay? And we want to do all of this, and then we want to do this. So it's we're changing the order of precedence that it might otherwise have. All right? I know one of the students years ago called me, and I didn't really appreciate it, but called me the parenthesis fairy because he said that, well, you put parentheses around everything. I said, maybe that's true. I don't really like the fairy part, but I understand what you're saying. All right. Now, what I can do is right now, and I'll come right back to where we just were, but I can bring that alert back. Oops. And I can say here, height equals, and I can put in the height. And then a \n, and then I can say weight equals, and then another \n, oops. And now I can say BMI equals. Again, what I'm doing here is what chapter 4 in your book is about. I'm debugging. I'm trying to look and see if I have any errors in my code. So I put that in. I don't need to keep that here, when I get all done. But I want to run the program. 72, 172. Well, that's what it says. I haven't done the status yet, right? I haven't figured that out. But that is within valid range. So that's an optimal weight person. If I run it again and I put in 72 and I say you weigh 98 pounds, that should be a number less than 18.5, which will be underweight. If I run it again and I say you're 72, let's put you at, well, I don't know, 222 pounds. That's actually over 30, so that's going to be obese. All right, let's do it one more time, and we'll say 72. We'll make them 190 pounds. And that's over 25. That should be overweight. Does that make sense? I didn't, right there, I didn't want to check my outer range stuff because I already checked that. But I just put in something that would be reflective of all 4 of my categories. Does that make sense? All right, so the next thing that I have to do then is to come in and actually figure out that weight status. All right, so right now I'm going to comment this all out. I'm going to bring it back in just a bit, but I have to do my BMI status. All right, that's going to be done by calculate BMI status, and I'm going to pass in the BMI. So that's here. And again, I'm just adding some comments here, a begin and an end. You don't have to do that. What you have to start doing when you're coding is to come up and start to create your own method of coding, your own type of standard. All right? I don't care that much how you do it, but I care that you do it. All right? So, well, what do I want to do here? Using the calculated BMI in the table shown, determine their status. There's actually 2 things I want to do in here. I want to figure out if they're underweight, optimal weight, overweight, or obese. That's one thing. What's the other thing I want to do? Add to the appropriate accumulator. Thank you. So I could have put it here. Also, increment the appropriate accumulator. All right? So, what I did, you didn't have to do this. Everybody hear me? You didn't have to do what I'm about to show you. But if you remember, if we look right here, I gave you the range. If you remember, I gave you the range up here. Okay, this. Okay? So what I did was I called 18.50. I created a constant for that I called max under. Okay? Then I created another constant for this right here that I called max over. Then I created another one for here that I called, I'm sorry, that's max optimal, not max over. One here I called max over, okay, and that was 30. And actually that's not even true, because I want to say less than that, and I want to say less than that. You didn't have to do that. What's going to happen over time? As a society, I'm very reflective of this. We're getting to be a fat society. We just are. These numbers have already changed over the years. They have. But probably what's going to end up happening is maybe 25 will end up being underweight. Maybe over time those numbers will change. And because of that, it's good to make them constants, because if this program is 1,000,000 lines long and you're using 18.5 and 30, except all over the place in your program, it's much better to use constants. Plus, what constants do is they make the program a little bit more self-documented. All right. So I've got two ways that I can do this. What I just showed you, I can call that max over. All right. I could also come in here and call that min under. I'm sorry, min over. So that is max underweight. This could be minimum overweight and minimum obese. Would you agree with that? I kind of like doing it better that way. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to create those three constants in here after my other ones. So the first one was min under. I think it was 18.50. In fact, that was max under. That's a min. Min, maximum min. Okay. Now, I'm not saying, again, this is not the only way of doing this. That's why I always hesitate when I call what I'm doing a key. That assumes that this is the way that it should be done. No, this is a way that it can be done. If you got yours to work, but your logic was a little different than mine, but your logic actually solved the problem and gave you correct results, that's fine. All right, I've given you that example before that if I said tomorrow we're all meeting and we're all going to meet at the St. Louis campus. Well, if Colin lives in O'Fallon, it probably doesn't make sense for him to get onto 364 and take that around. It probably makes more sense for him to take 70, depending on where he is in O'Fallon. All right. If Christopher lives in Chesterfield, it probably doesn't make sense for him to come all the way back to 70. It might make sense for him to take 364. Bottom line is, did you get there? All right. And it's the same kind of thing here. So I've got max under, min over, and min obese. I'm just going to grab those and copy them so I don't screw up the names. No. So I'm going to, for right now, I'm just going to paste those in. I'm going to get rid of this in just a minute. So the first thing I want to say is, if the BMI is less than max under. In other words, what do we know? Person is underweight. So if that's the case, I probably want a variable in here. Let's see, are we returning anything? We're returning the status. All right. So we want to have a status variable because we're not passing in the status. So I better create a status variable up here. So var status equals double quote, and this will be my BMI status. I'm going to get rid of this now. I already used that one, so I know that can go away. All right. So if that's the case, the status, oh boy, status is equal, oh, see that? See how that word is Brown? Everybody see that? That means it's probably a keyword. So I probably shouldn't use it. So I'll just make it S. Instead of status rather, I'll just say S. All right, so I'll say here S equals underweight. Here's a question for you. I'll give you a hint. The answer is yes. All right? Could I have taken underweight, overweight, obese, and optimal weight and made them constants? Sure. If we wanted to do that, we could make constants not just numeric constants. You could make string constants. Maybe some of you did. All right? What's the other thing, Colin, you just said I want to do here? I want to grab and add one to the accumulator. So that's tote. What do we call it? Tote or toto? I don't remember. Total underweight. Plus plus. Again, I could have said equals at plus 1. It doesn't really matter. Else, if BMI is less than min over, I can get rid of that one. Jeez. Yeah. And we call that one what? Total optimal weight. All right, there's my first two. What the heck happened there? Oops, not obese, that's overweight. Yeah, you can say plus plus or before or after. It really doesn't matter. And if they're not underweight and they're not optimal weight and they're not overweight, well, the only thing that's left is they're obese. Jeez. Come on. All right, so taking it from the top. I don't need any of these now. There's my status. All right. If this, the person is underweight. Otherwise, if this, the person is optimal weight. If it's this, the person is overweight. Finally, if it's this, the person is obese. Yes. No. The way that it works, I want to show you an example that I typically put up, and we may go over it when we do chapter 3. I don't know. This is not the way, if it was up to me, okay, I don't run Rankin. Never have, never will. But when I was at Blackhawk, I told them I wanted to set up my own grading scale. Okay? I didn't get pluses and minuses. I didn't do that. That just wasn't the way it was. So, 90 to 100 was an A. 80 to 89 was a B. 70 to 79 was a C. 60 to 69 was a D. And less than 60 was an F. Does that make sense? All right. So taking that into accord here, let's say that I wanted to do this. So I said here, if grade, all right, if it's greater than or equal to 90, I'll have something I call letter grade equals A. Else, if grade greater than or equal to 80, the letter grade equal B. Everybody get that? I keep going C, D, and F. That make sense? All right. I'm hoping this goes back to the question you asked. All right. So let's say that the person got a 93. As soon as it finds something that's true like this, it does this and it skips the rest. That's just how it works. But if it was 83, it says, okay, is it greater than or equal to 90? No, so it skips this. Is it greater than or equal to 80? Yes, so it does this and it skips whatever is left. So in the same way, as soon as it finds that the person, let's say that their BMI is 10, which would make them dead, but let's just say it's 10. It does underweight, it adds there, it skips all this. So you do the next one. Their BMI is 20. All right. Is that less than or equal to 18.5? No. Is it less than or equal to 25? Yes. So it does this and it skips this. Then the next person comes in. Their BMI is 30. Is it less than or equal, is it less than 18.5? No. Is it less than 25? No. Is it less than 30? So let's say it was 28. Yes. So they're overweight and it skips this. We do one last person. Their BMI is 40. They should be dead too. All right. And is it less than 18.5? No. So you skip it. Is it less than 25? No. So you skip it. Is it less than 30? No. So you skip it. That means they're obese. You add to that counter and you're done. Does that make sense? That's the logic that the computer takes. You had a question. Okay.
What is the plus is adding one?
That's adding 1 to it. It's just, those are accumulators, so it's going to add 1. So it's going to say one more person was overweight, one more person was underweight, one more person, whatever. All right? And as Colin said, you have your choice. You can take the plus plus, and you can put it over here too. It doesn't matter. There's actually 4 ways that we can do this. We can either say total obese equals total obese plus 1. That's the worst way because it's the most typing. Or we can say total obese plus equal 1. Or we can say plus plus total obese. Or we can say total obese plus plus. All 4 of those will add 1. All right? Every programmer that I know is going to do either this one or this one because it's the least typing.
The variable S, you put the quotation marks, is that just because it's, you haven't...
Because there's no value to it. So we're setting it equal to the empty string. So typically, if you've got numeric values and you don't know what their value is, you set that equal to 0. If it's a Boolean, you typically set it equal to false. And if it's a string, you typically set it equal to double quote, or single quote, because it's the empty string. Now, any questions? Any other, because these are good questions. Any other questions on what we've done so far? I want to finish this and then we'll take a break. All right? Yes?
You don't need equals to here on that?
Don't need what?
Like less than or equals to
No. That just because of the way that it was set up. All right? Now, one more thing I forgot to do. Can somebody tell me what that one last thing is I got to do? That's right. We got to return the status. Now that we've got a status, we've got to return it. And that S that we're returning right here, that S on line 187 is going to be stuffed inside of that right there. So now I can take this alert before I go and write my output all info. I'm going to uncomment this. And now I'm going to say BMI status equal plus status. And I've got to make sure I come over to here. All right. And again, this should work. If I put any error, made any errors, I don't know what they are, but it sure is possible that I have. 72, 172. Well, it doesn't like their status. Something is missing there, but notice that worked, and that worked. That's good. All right, I'm going to stop this and let's take a look and see if we can figure out why I didn't get anything there. Oh, because it's not status. It's BMI status.
What's the point of returning it? Like, what does that even do?
It takes and makes a copy of it, and it stuffs it into the actual variable where you wanted that value to go. So let's try it one more time here. 72, 172, optimal weight. That's good. Let's try it again, and let's make the person real underweight. That's good. Let's try it again, see if we can make them kind of overweight. That's overweight. Let's do it one more time. Let's make them obese. Okay, didn't like the obese. Something screwed up there. So I go back to the program. S equal obese. Well, that looked like it was. Looks like it's okay. Return S. Total obesity. See that? I'd like to say, hey, I made those mistakes on purpose to show you. No. I like to think I'm at least semi-human. I'm going to make mistakes. So now I've got total obese. So let's try to run it one more time. I've already checked the other one, so I just want to check obese here. So 72, 333, obese. All right. Now I'm not sure that my counters are working, correct? I'm not sure, but I'll check that out in just a minute. So the only thing that's left now in here, now I really don't need this alert that I've been putting in, because now what we're going to do is we're going to call output all info, and we're going to output the height, the weight, the BMI, and the BMI status. So that's in here. I think we were supposed to do that as an alert. Really should have kept that alert that I had, but that's okay. Height. N plus weight plus BMI plus, I won't need this, status. And that was what? BMI status. Everybody see that? Now, before you go and type it in, that's got to be a plus sign. Let's double check and make sure it works. All right? So, that's now commented out, or uncommented. So I'm going to save this. I guess I have saved. And let's try to run it. There it is. It's the same thing you saw before, but now it's in its own function. So I know the optimal weight works. The underweight works. The overweight works. And the obese works. So I know all those work. So the only thing that's left is for us to come in and, I'm going way over here, is to come in and basically write my function that's going to run when I get all done, correct? So I've got my while keep going, and as soon as I fall out of here, I want to output accumulators. Now this is not meant to be a trick question, but I'm asking you this. Do I have to pass anything to output accumulators? Why or why not? Colin, you're saying no. Why not? I agree with you. Why not? Because they're global. Don't pass global variables. It's why they're global, so you don't have to pass them. All right? So we're going to output the accumulators. We want to do that when we're all done. Don't worry about, we'll come back in just a second. And what about asking if they want to do it again? Let's first just output those darn accumulators and see if this works. All right? So I'm going to do this. All right, that was supposed to be with a document.write. Now again, I told you this, but you may or may not have remembered, when you do this and you're doing a document.write, you've got to use BR tags instead of \n tags. All right, that's just because of the way that it works. I can't say it's because of this. No, it's because that's what you have to do. Oh, I skipped one. Again, I'm taking for granted I didn't make any typos in there. We're going to find out. All right? Right now, though, the problem with this, if you look up on the screen, the problem with this, I've got no way to actually get this function called because the other part of it's in an infinite loop, correct? So I do have to write my code to make it stop. All right? Does everybody who needs this have this? All right. So let's go back into our while loop. Okay, now we're all done. So we want to say here, again, equal prompt, run program again, y, n. And we'll default it to y. All right, here's a question for you. Please look up on the screen. Why don't I have a parse int or a parse float in there? Because there's no number. I could put 37 in there, but it's a string 37. So this should come up and say run program again, yn. And again, there is no accounting for human stupidity. You can ask them to type in a y or an n. That doesn't mean they're going to do it. So we're trying to account for that human stupidity in here. So we're going to say here again, equal char at 0.2 uppercase. In English, that says give me the first character and make it uppercase. So if I type in there, yes, it's going to grab just that character and uppercase it. If I type in no, it's going to grab just that character and uppercase it. If I leave it blank, whatever. Does all that make sense? So now I can come in and say if, again, equal, I could use 3 equals there, y, all right? Now, I'll come right back to it. Let's make sure it works. So let me run this, and I'm going to put in one of everybody. Oops, notice, boom. All right, so something's screwed up in here.
I'm getting an error that says the Y and N.
Right here?
Yeah.
Ah, you're right, because there's no comma there. Finish? Okay. So let's try that and see if that's what the problem was. That must have been it. All right, so the first one, now I should have 1 in my optimal weight. We want to run it again. Yes. Well, that didn't work. I put in a Y and it didn't take that. So again, we are debugging right now. So keep going equal true. While keep going, if again, maybe it didn't like that triple. I don't know why it wouldn't. But I'm going to try it with just a double and see if that works. Oops, wrong. Oh, there's something in there that's wrong. So let's see. Well, keep going. There's the end of that. I'll put accumulators. Yeah, that all looks fine. So let's go back and look at the code. Again, equal prompt. Ah, you're right. You're right. Thank you. That's not again equals that. That should be first char equals that. But that's still not going to fix the problem because that could now be first char. All right, and you're right. That's what should have been done. So first char. In fact, really, if this confuses you, this chaining, I can do this. I can say again equals again dot to uppercase. I can do that. And then just say first char equals, and that's where the error is, again dot char at 0. That's why it didn't work. So there's a lot of ways this can be done. I don't even need a first char in there. You're right, though. I could have just said here, again equals again dot char at 0 dot to uppercase. There's a lot of ways that this could be done. Let's see if it works. Let's just do one more, make one more obese person. Now, if this is correct, there should be one underweight, one optimal weight, one overweight, and 2 obese. I think that's what I put in. So do I want to do it again? No. And there we have it. Now, did that help? Now, and I know it's really easy to say, well, yeah, why don't we do that first? Well, then what the hell would I have given you a test for? All right? Yes. Actually, the triple equals should work in there. The triple equals is equality and identity. So what that says, and I'm going to go back and change it to a triple equals and make sure it works. That says not only does it equal, but first char has to be of that type. So it has to be of type string. What it is it's considered a safer way of validating. That's all. No, no, I would not. But I want to see if that still works then with that in there. Okay, it does. Does anybody need me to put any of it back up there that you didn't get it or whatever?
Did you go over why we're doing the dot to uppercase and then the first character?
Because the reason that we're doing this is could I do it without this? The answer is yes. But if I didn't put in that line that you see in gray right there, then I'd have to say if first char equals this, or first char equal a lowercase y. So by putting it in there with the 2 uppercase, I don't have to make that second check. That's why I'm doing it. Again, do you have to? No. It's a matter of coding preference. I like doing it here. Then I'm only checking for one thing. The smaller the number of things that are valid, the easier it is for the computer to check. All right? Anything else? Any other questions? Yes. The output accumulators? Yes, that would be more than fine. We haven't talked about that yet, so that's why I didn't do that.
Can I see the output all info part?
This? All right. You must need a break. So it's 9:37. Let's come back at 5 to 10, and we will start going over chapter 3. And a lot of it's going to be a review based off what we did here and what we've done in the past. There's going to be some new stuff, but the majority of it will not be new.